Most AI initiatives have been proofs of concept over the last 18 months. A small number are now moving into production. The success of AI projects is measured differently. It's often difficult to measure financial gains, so you have to look at other parameters to see if the project was worthwhile. The outcomes of AI projects don't always align with existing strategic objectives. And AI often has runaway costs. You're charged a license fee and usage fees, and the usage fee might be based on the size of the prompts and/or of the responses. If everybody in the organization is asking a model questions, it's easy to lose control. You also have to increase processing power and data storage capacity. Finally, you need the people to run the projects, and the number and skill level of the people are not always easily predictable. This idea of AI engineering, that organizations have to start getting good at doing AI projects, is something Gartner has written a lot about in the last few years. And we're here with another expert, Martin Hulbert, CTO of Ignite Technology. How are organizations typically managing the delivery of AI initiatives?
Most organizations have chosen to go down an agile route with their AI initiatives, and they've done that for a couple of reasons, which are very good reasons. Mainly, agile has been around for a while now, and it's been a big push in lots of organizations to go agile. So it's seen as a very good thing to be pushing into the agile space. But equally, the way that AI came about, it wasn't really asked for or planned in. So it effectively appeared on most people's desks as something to deal with. And agile lends itself very well to that because we can spin our teams up quickly, we can move rapidly, we can change as we need to. So it was a really good fit for the way that we wanted to deliver AI because it was a new thing and it was needing to be done fast. So that's typically how most organizations have gone, and it's worked well for them because it has allowed them that agility to adapt and change as AI has evolved. And we're talking really about Gen AI here. The other forms of machine learning have been around for a long time, but Gen AI is really the one that's appeared on the radar, if you like, and needed a quick response by most organizations.
How has AI caused companies to change their strategic priorities?
As we sort of said already, AI was definitely a disruptor, and still continues to be to most organizations. It wasn't something they were planning for. We saw this explosion in interest in Gen AI as it came around, mainly due to the fact that it came in a slightly different route to normal for most IT organizations. So we've seen that the public picked it up very rapidly. We've seen that younger generations picked it up rapidly. And we've seen that those influences have gone into the board level for most organizations. So now you've got the CEO, the COO, all very interested in this AI topic, but their organization's not doing anything with it, and they're seen as effectively being slow to the race, basically. So they didn't want to lose out, so they started putting pressure onto the CIO and the CTO to effectively do something about it. And that sort of mentality is great for innovation and great for pushing things forwards, but it obviously didn't leave a lot of time for planning. And if you think about most organizations are set out with their roadmaps, they already have the strategies in place, they know what they're doing. There was already a lot of initiatives around cloud, for example, that a lot of organizations were pushing into cloud. So really, it came along almost like a global disruptor that we've seen around, say, the pandemic, the war, and things like that, where it really was a rapid need to change was happening. And how do you adapt to that? How do you adapt to that quickly and efficiently? Which initiatives do you drop? Which initiatives can wait? So it was critical, really, that effectively you've got the data ready and able to show you which direction you should be going in.
Okay, so it sounds like a case where portfolio management tools might be useful. How do you represent AI projects in PPM tools?
So typically, as we've said, the AI initiatives have been managed in an agile way. It allowed them to be stood up quickly. It allowed them to adapt rapidly to the changing landscape. Most organizations were feeling their way around this, not only in terms of the technology, but also the skill sets. One of the things that most organizations are crying out for is the right skill sets for AI. So they had to grow all of this from scratch. They didn't have something they could really call on. They've also had to grow all of the infrastructure underneath as well. That didn't exist either. So they've been putting all of this together, and they've been doing this very much in an agile sense in that space. Effectively, what is missing with that is, although that's good for the execution layer, if you start to go up the layers that you would typically have, so if you get to sort of scaled agile, for example, when you're into your PI planning, maybe that exists in that organization, and maybe that's in tune with their agile execution. But beyond that, strategic objectives, aligning to the roadmap of the organization as a whole, the entire resource management pool, what resources do I have? What skill sets do I have? That's typically handled by an SPM tool. And also, when we get to the theme and epic layer, that's typically also coming into that long-term vision. Agile isn't typically interested in a long-term vision. It's interested in what we're doing day to day and how we're executing over the next few weeks. That's the nature of the tool set and the methodology. So without the strategic part over the top and the alignment to the overall objectives of the organization, the two aren't able to effectively work together in tandem anymore.
Okay. Then how can SPM platforms be used to effectively manage your AI projects?
So SPM really comes into its own in that strategic vision, that forward-looking piece, and how are we actually going to move the organization forward? How are we going to align to our objectives? So it is the layers that come above agile execution and planning and go into themes and epics in that sense, and also how are we building our roadmap out for the organization and what we're doing. And it also allows us to bring multiple agile tools together, because obviously a lot of organizations will have different agile tool sets. So one team could be working in one tool set, one team could be working in another. That's fairly common. It could be that even they stood up an entirely brand new tool just to deal with all the AI work that was going on. So what we want to do is really bring that together at the top level and provide a singular picture at the strategic level of how the entire organization is working. And we can do that for cost, resourcing, strategic alignment, and the ongoing roadmap, and ensure the organization is moving in the right direction. And this effectively allows organizations to plan and pivot the teams underneath and the resources they have effectively as those strategies change. So AI was a change to strategy itself, and we can ensure that we then have the correct funding and the correct resources in place as well going forwards to meet the organization's needs for today and into the future. But it also allows us to track the different dependencies between our different initiatives, which could be something as straightforward as we need new infrastructure to run our AI platforms. Maybe there's a mobile app that we need that the AI is going to be built into if we're customer facing, or the website needs to change. Those things are typically being dealt with in different work streams by different teams, and the SPM layer allows us to actually bring those together and see those across all of the different initiatives we're running. But it also allows us to bring waterfall projects that were potentially running on different places. Maybe we had a waterfall project running on a data center, for example. We can bring those all together and see the entire picture. And that's really where the SPM piece comes in at that top level.
Okay. So SPM planning for agile methodologies has been around for ages, and people have had to shift resources around in response to big events. What's the difference with AI?
So I would say AI is no different to any of those big events. I think we've seen organizations that have effectively and successfully implemented SPM solutions above their agile methodologies and tools that they have, able to replan and strategize far more easily and then quickly redeploy resources and funds where they needed to in response to disruptive events. So we've already had the pandemic. We've seen that with organizations that had this in place there. they were quickly and rapidly able to redeploy resources and funds towards, say, working from home, for example, with those. And we've also seen it with recent conflicts where we've had examples of organizations that perhaps have had their supply chains disrupted and they've had to replan and redistribute where their different supply routes are coming from, and also their production facilities and things like that. So those organizations have been able to rapidly repivot to that. And the AI phenomenon is effectively the same thing because it's come along, it's disrupted, it wants to take away resources and it wants to take away funds because there are things that need doing. And those organizations that have that in place are able to do that very effectively and work out what they can drop, what they can keep in, what is actually, a necessity to their AI strategy overall, because they can see that, okay, we can't drop certain strategies around replacing aging architecture because actually we need to replace it and put new infrastructure in that will actually support the AI technology we're bringing in. So these are the things that have proven that having an effective SPM strategy in place is really key. And I think AI definitely fits into that. And it won't be the last disruptive event we see either. We will definitely have, whether it be an emerging technology or a future global event that causes disruption, the ever-present need to be able to pivot the whole organization based off of what you have in front of you, giving you the data you need when you need it to see those changes, to scenario plan, really is critical and will become more and more dependent as technology effectively runs more and more of our lives.
How are AI initiatives impacting the rest of the workflows and the rest of the portfolios?
So ultimately, to get started with AI, of every organization would have had to have made a cut to something. So they would have had to have cut back on certain work streams or initiatives that they previously had in place, or put them on the back burner, waiting for a time when they can be picked back up again. So there was definitely going to be changes to the current workload. A lot of these pieces that were needed by these organizations, maybe they brought new skills in, but that would have, again, it's being taken from somewhere, so the budget would have been lost somewhere to bring those new skills in, for example. So with an SPM solution in place, that's easy to visualize and do, and track over time, of course, because we want to track the effect of what's happening over time. But it's also a lot easier to see what's critical still that we need to do and time sensitive. So we might have more mundane initiatives that we had running. So perhaps replacing old tech that needed to be upgraded or taken out because it was no longer supported. But those things are still critical because we have potentially governance issues where we can no longer provide evidence that we have a supported product, for example, or there are operating systems going out of date. We've seen Windows server recently going out, and a lot of organizations were still running on those older versions, but they're now out of OS support, and that causes governance problems. And those types of things are very hard to see without a tool set that actually shows you that whole picture. So definitely there was an impact to what was happening in the organization. There definitely would have been things that were cut out and put on the back burner. But with the SPM tool in place, it makes it a lot easier to see that.
Can you give me some examples of how this plays out in specific industries?
I think it's fair to say that every industry has been affected by AI in some way. I think the majority of organizations that have been biggest impacted are those that are public facing, because the demand for the public for Gen AI, that's been the biggest driver for a lot of organizations. So we've seen a lot of various AI solutions pop up for different mobile apps, for example, on the websites. Those are very, very obvious to see, but there are obviously those use cases that are in use that we haven't really seen because they're not public facing. So we know there's a lot of development going on around trading platforms, for example, using AI to predict trading patterns based off of old data, to effectively, much more rapidly and efficiently manage trades. and predict the future outcomes of the stock market, for example. So there's a big range going on. So I think most industries have been affected, but those ones that are the public facing, I think have probably been the heaviest affected because it's an expectation of the public that they would have some form of AI. And I think organizations, this is what's driven the behavior at the board level, would feel that if they don't have an element of AI, they are falling out of favor with customers. And we've also seen this with certainly the products that Ignite work with, that we have seen that there's a push to get AI into those products, but also there's a push from the customers and clients we have where they want to see that AI is part of that because AI is forming their strategy. They might not know what that particularly is, but they want to see at least the word AI appear somewhere on the list of features that the products are provided.
How do you integrate agile tools with an SPM tool?
So this is a good question, and this has been something that's been done for a long time. So this is not a new thing that can be done just because of the AI piece. It's been around for a long time. Getting it right is the key, obviously. The solution effectively works around the APIs of the platforms involved at a technical level. And Ignite has worked with these for a long time and is well established in using them and connecting the products up. Um, the main real key factor is about the data at the right level. So it's about having the right data in the right place. SPM is concerned about the top level of the tree. So it's concerned around strategy, it's concerned around rolling data up to gather up our costs, our resource usage. It's not really even worrying about particularly below epic level. So we have that level of data in the top level when it's not worried about execution. It's not worried about our releases that are occurring. So it's about having the right tool for the right job, and then effectively connecting those up. A lot of people have got sort of mislaid with this where they try to bring too much into the SPM tool, and SPM tools aren't designed to work in an agile way. That's not their primary purpose. So there is definitely this big push for me that you make sure that you keep the right data in the right tool in the right place, and then you will have success because you will be able to bring all of the pieces together rather than trying to do too much. We are definitely not trying to create a super tool that does everything. That's not what we're trying to do. So we want to have SPM representing the themes and the epics. We want the SPM to be maintaining the portfolio level and the roadmap of the organization. And we want our agile tooling to be dealing with the daily execution and sprints. And we want our PI planning to be in our tools that are good at doing that. That's the best scenario that we can have.
How do AI initiatives change stakeholder management with top management knocking on the project manager's door and saying the numbers don't look so good anymore?
And I think this is really back to the change in what we're seeing at the moment, where a lot of organizations are dialing back on what they've been doing in the AI space. So initially, like most things that are shiny and new, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of expectation. It's very high at the start. And dare I say, there's a lot of blank check mentality of um, let's just go and do something and get it going. It's going to be great and amazing. Of course, that fades a bit with time and reality and what is actually achievable. And this is where now I feel like we are now, where we've had a lot of innovation, we've had a lot of exploration from a lot of organizations, and now we're really seeing this. Well, actually, that's great, but what are we actually getting out of it? Are we actually getting a return on our investment? Is this really what we should be doing? Is this delivering value to our customers ultimately at the end of the day? So that's where really we're seeing this pivot now back to, okay, we need to actually set some strategies, we need to set objectives, we need to set clear budgets, we need to understand the costs involved. And that's where your question kind of comes from in terms of stakeholder management is really now it's shifted from, well, let's just do something
Mhm.
and get ourselves out of this thing where we might be falling behind. let's actually now sit down and work out what is the question we're actually trying to answer with the AI toolset, rather than let's just go and try and answer everything with it. And I think this is where really the SPM piece has come into its own, because when we have our different strategies and we're picking one that we're going to try, and we're going to work with AI in that way and see if that works, and develop that, we can really keep an eye on the focus on those key markers. So we can keep an eye on the cost, we can keep an eye on whether we're actually fulfilling our objectives, whether we're matching the organization objectives, whether we're actually getting the benefit we thought we would. And we can track also our interdependent costs as well, in terms of pieces of the organization that need to adapt and change to fit to what we're actually doing, and whether they have to deliver something. We mentioned before about mobile apps and websites and infrastructure. That's all part of the same picture. So we can really track that a lot better if we've got that in an SPM system. It's very hard to get to if we're purely in an agile space. And I think those organizations that are now adapting to running the initiatives and the objectives properly will see a lot of benefit in having those rolled up into an SPM platform, because they'll be able to get to the answers a lot quicker. In fact, the stakeholder management, top-down management, doesn't need to be knocking on project managers' doors. They can see it in the system live. It's already coming through. They can understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis without having to bother anyone. So it's a lot more efficient as a process. And I think that management reporting, as I say, will become a lot more focused, a lot more critical as we go forwards, as questions start to be asked about what is it we're actually getting out of this and what is the cost.
How are single source of truth and singular reporting affected?
Agile tools are designed to cater very well for execution layers. We've discussed, makes it much easier for the team to complete their work. It makes it much easier to realize benefit faster than ever before with waterfall projects. That's a known fact, and their focus is rightly on the execution part. So they make it easy for teams to do their job day to day, but they lack the ability to have the top level view down into that world. So they're limited in that sense, and they can't really be a single source of truth if you've got multiple tools, of course, because you've got different teams using different tools, different areas perhaps using different tools. So your single source of truth and singular reporting are very much affected when you're in this space. It's very, very hard to get to. And the reporting is also very granular as well. Most management and executives aren't interested in the granularity at this level. They know it has to happen, of course, but they're not interested in that. They want to know what's happening at the top level, which typically is not run on the day to day or week to week. It's in your month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. That's where their interest lies. So SPM is effectively working at those levels much higher up. So we've already said SPM is not the place for the execution level in Agile, but it is the place for rolling everything together and having the view of our roadmap going forwards, bringing all of our costs and finances together, and also our resource pool as well, to understand if we've got the right people available to us and if we've got any bottlenecks in capacity. So that's really where we see all of that coming together, and we see all of the agile tool sets being brought together into that one single pane of glass into the organization of what our actual capacity and capability is at any one point. And that is giving you that singular reporting view for your management. And we can see all across everything to do with the projects and initiatives we're working with. So we can see the time, the cost, resources, skills, the capacity, road mapping, the dependencies between different parts of the organization, even risks, issues, status, everything that we need to understand, insights into our organization immediately from the management level. And that's not to diminish the agile tool sets in any sense, but it is back to a firm belief I have, which is you use the right tool for the job. And that is where the SPM tool is designed to be that single point, single source of truth and that single pane of glass, and bring everything together and do it very well. Whereas the agile tool sets are very good at running your execution.
How do you see the phenomenon we've been talking about play out over the next year?
I think most people at the moment are in agreement that we haven't quite seen the crest of the AI wave, but it is fast approaching. So I think we will see more and more organizations effectively try and bring order to the front once again in terms of planning and strategizing from the top down what it is they're trying to achieve. So what, as I said before, what question are we actually asking that we're trying to answer? What's going to bring the best benefit to the organization or our customers? And how does that align overall with what we're actually doing? A lot of the tech we've seen come out around AI, some of it is what I would class as gimmicky AI, so it's effectively doing something, but it's not really helping. Some AI has come out and has been not really what people want or of any use. So I think a lot more is going to be down to actually planning in what is it we're trying to do a lot more effectively, probably involving all the different departments as well, to try and get to the right type of technology to be bringing to the forefront versus that isn't. But equally also monitoring what that technology is doing and understanding if it's actually fitting with what we originally decided to do. And if it isn't, it makes it far more easier to then pivot away from that and into another strategy. So we're seeing that type of attitude coming towards AI as well, in terms of actually starting with one part, and then maybe that doesn't work out, we switch to another one, which is actually quite hard to do at the moment in the purely agile space. But if we're tracking those strategies at the top level in the SVM tool, that's actually quite easy because that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to repivot the organization rapidly and redeploy our resources. So I think also, we're gonna definitely see a balance also back with current initiatives. So those initiatives that may have been put on the back burner and those that were critical and perhaps probably shouldn't have been shelved, we're going to see those also coming back into the to play as well, because they're going to have to. They're going to have to eventually be dusted off and re-looked at. So I do believe there'll be a calming phase where things start to calm down effectively in terms of how much of an organization's time AI is taking up. Of course, AI can be used to free up time as well. So we're talking primarily here around development of AI technologies for perhaps an end customer or a product, but there is also AI distributed within an organization to actually speed things up for individuals in that organization. Again, all of these strategies fall under the same banner effectively of trying to measure what the benefit is to the organization and how they're actually deployed and all the dependencies and everything else that goes with them. Even something as simple as rolling out Microsoft Copilot, organizations have struggled to do that because they are kind of almost just testing the water, if you like, and pushing them out. So I think a lot of that will start to be wrapped under proper management and proper strategy planning, and actually having those objectives laid out and having the measures and markers moved along with the projects as they go.
Well, that was very useful. Thank you for sharing your insights, Martin.
Thank you. It's been great to talk to you today.